She said it more than once. Her sister has testified to it, in writing, under oath, in a court of law.
And that's making sure that my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future and peace.
That Mica Miller said it on many occasions in the years and months before she died. That she said it to the people she trusted. That she said it the way a person says something they need someone else to remember. If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me. It was JP.
So, over the years since we've been married, some people struggle with high blood pressure, some struggle with diabetes, her struggle was with mental health. And whenever she stayed on her lithium, things were amazing. She'd come off sometimes and things would get a little unusual. Per her doctors, they told her even just recently they had written that she was homicidal, suicidal, and she had struggled with suicide before. And each time, helped her through it, took her to her doctor, and we got through it, and everything was fine. And so this past time was still a shock, an incredible shock.
On April 27th, 2024, the body of Mica Acacia Miller was found in the Lumber River in Robeson County, North Carolina.
This is the exact place Johnny Jacobs says he placed the personal items of Mica Miller when he found them right down this river on a small bank.
She was 30 years old. She had been married to a pastor. She had been afraid, for a very long time, of what might happen when she tried to leave him. Authorities ruled her death a suicide.
Police say a 911 call came from the park, and police say Mica made the call. On the now released 911 call, the caller says she plans to take her own life.
The question of what happened to Mica Miller and what was done to her before that day is still being answered. A federal case is pending. A trial has been scheduled. The man who was her husband is awaiting judgment. And the words Mica said on many occasions to the people she loved are still out there.
I'm not going to judge. My gut feeling, I don't agree. The young lady was energetic. She was making plans. It just doesn't sound like someone committing suicide. It sounds like someone that's getting ready to live life again, really starting her life over.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me.
This is the case of Mica Acacia Miller, and this is the open file. And this is the open file. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is a city of contrasts. It is a resort town, a place people come to for the season and then leave. A place with a grand strand of beach hotels and a golf corridor and a particular kind of summer abundance. But it is also a place where people live year-round, in the ordinary fabric of communities that tourist economies tend to flatten into backdrop. Solid Rock at Market Common was a non-denominational church located in one of Myrtle Beach's more affluent sections. Market Common, a planned mixed-use district built on the site of a former Air Force base, with boutique shops and restaurants arranged along walkable streets. The church was led by a pastor named John Paul Miller, who went by JP. He was photogenic, articulate, and possessed of the particular gravity that some church leaders carry. The kind that makes a congregation feel that something important is being built, and that they are part of it. Mica Miller was, by the accounts of those who knew her, the kind of person who walked into a room and changed it.
Sunday morning.
a graphic designer. She led the women's ministry and worship team at Solid Rock. She was a stepmother to JP's 5 children from a prior relationship. She was, by the descriptions of the people who loved her, energetic and affirming and creative. The kind of person for whom the word faith meant something specific and practiced, not abstract. She was 30 years old when she died. She had told people what she was afraid of.
The investigation into the sudden death of a popular South Carolina pastor's wife.
Police will meet with the family of a woman found dead under suspicious circumstances.
Mica Miller was born on March 7, 1994, in Wichita, Kansas, to Michael Francis and Angelita Ramirez. She grew up in the particular rootedness of a Midwestern family, a place and a faith that gave her, by every account, a strong sense of who she was and what she believed. She was a graphic designer by training and by nature, a person who thought visually, who understood how images and words work together to make something true. She was drawn to ministry, to the work of the church, to the idea that a community of people committed to something larger than themselves could become something worth building. What no one would know, what would not be stated publicly until after her death, was that John Paul Miller had known Mica since she was 10 years old. That detail is in a police report. Mica herself told the officer. She said she had known JP since she was a child. She said he had groomed her while she worked for him at Solid Rock Church in the years before they married, a relationship that, by her own account, had not begun with 2 adults meeting on equal terms, that had begun when one of them was a child and the other was already a pastor with a church and a position and a particular kind of authority. They married in 2017. She was 23 years old. She became a stepmother to his 5 children. She led the women's ministry. She was, from the outside, the pastor's wife, which, in a church like Solid Rock, is itself a kind of role, a set of expectations, a public face that has to be maintained even when the private reality is something different. Mica Miller maintained that face for years, and then, in January of 2023, she told her husband the marriage was over. The separation, by Mica's account, did not bring peace. It brought a different kind of pressure. In October of 2023, 9 months after she told JP the marriage was over, they filed official divorce proceedings. She had moved out. She was living on her own in Myrtle Beach, in an apartment on Margarita Drive, building the life she intended to have after the marriage ended. What she encountered, instead, was a pattern of behavior that the federal indictment would later describe as having begun in November of 2022, 1 month before she formally initiated the separation, before she had even said the words out loud to him. The indictment would allege that from November 2022 until the day she died, John Paul Miller sent her unwanted and harassing communications, that it continued without interruption for more than 16 months. On February 8, 2024, Mica was involuntarily hospitalized for 48 hours at a Myrtle Beach facility. When she was discharged on February 10th, she learned that JP had come to collect her purse and her car keys while she was receiving treatment. She returned to the parking lot where she had left her car. It was gone. Since the vehicle was still considered marital property, police told her, no charges could be filed. The car would not be returned until the divorce was resolved in court. She went back to her apartment without it. On February 21st, she filed a police report. She told the officer that she believed the hospitalization had been fraudulently initiated. She told the officer that JP had groomed her since childhood. She told the officer everything she knew about what was happening. The report was taken. The investigation, such as it was, concluded that there was insufficient evidence to pursue charges. On the morning of March 11th, 2024, a private investigator hired by JP followed Mica to a nearby beach. Later that same day, she discovered that one of her tires had been flattened. The cause was identified as a tire deflation device, the kind available for purchase online. She named a potential suspect. Investigators said there was insufficient evidence to prove he was involved. The same man, she reported, followed her to a gas station that afternoon. When she pulled out her phone to record him, he drove away. He then appeared at the dealership where she had taken the car to be repaired. At the dealership, mechanics found a tracking device attached to her car. She went to the magistrate's office that day and told them she was trying to obtain a restraining order, that she was afraid for her life. A summons was issued for both Mica and JP to appear at a bench trial. On the evening of March 11th, JP sent messages to church members falsely accusing Mica of sexual conduct with a church staff member. A man named DJ, who Mica had been seen with at the beach that morning. The bench trial for the restraining order was held on March 26th. On April 8th, Mica filed a police report alleging that JP had accessed an old phone he had taken from her and used it to upload a nude photograph to her Facebook account. On April 15th, Mica filed for a protection order and formally filed for divorce. On April 25th, 2024, a Thursday, JP was served with the protection order and the divorce papers. He was in Charleston the following day. Investigators have reconstructed the final hours of Mica Miller's life with a precision that is, in its own way, one of the most difficult things about this case to sit with. Because the record is detailed, because the timestamps exist, because the cameras were there, and yet the question at the center of what happened remains one that the official record does not fully answer. On the morning of April 27th, 2024, Mica was captured on her Ring camera, leaving her home on Margarita Drive at 10:13 in the morning. She returned at 11 o'clock. She left again at 11:38. At 12:12 in the afternoon, she entered Dick's pawn shop at 1852 Mr. Joe White Avenue in Myrtle Beach. At 12:13, she purchased a firearm, a 6-hour handgun, and ammunition. At 12:34, she left the pawn shop. At 1:06 in the afternoon, her black Honda Accord was seen traveling on Highway 501 near 4 Mile Road in Conway, heading north. At 1:27, she arrived at the 41 Grocery and Grill on Highway 41 in Mullins. At 1:35, she purchased a drink and gas. Then she continued driving. At 2:54 in the afternoon, Mica Miller called 911 dispatch in Robeson County, North Carolina, from a number with an 843 area code, a South Carolina number.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
You don't know where you're at?
At National Park.
The Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to self, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am.
while she was at Lumber River State Park. According to the Robeson County Sheriff's Office, she asked the dispatcher if her phone could be tracked. She said she was going to kill herself and wanted her family to be able to find her body. During the call, she hung up. The dispatcher tried to call her back multiple times and could not reach her. Deputies were dispatched at 3:03 p.m. At 3:50 p.m., a fisherman approached investigators at the park. He had found a bag near the water's edge, about 2 feet from the bank. It contained Mica's ID. The fisherman told investigators he had heard crying and then a gunshot.
I heard a cry back when I came in, where I told you I started hearing the crying at. Then I heard a gunshot. That was probably about 2 minutes or so after I started hearing the cry. It might have been a little bit longer than that. And I heard a gunshot. It wasn't a loud gunshot. And then the crying just stopped. Right about here, that's when I heard the gunshot. The gunshot went off.
From which side? Over here on the left?
To the left. That's where I heard the gunshot.
In there?
Uh-huh. That's when the crying stopped. I got out and I looked around because there was a clearing on the left and the right, and I looked around because I felt like something was wrong, but I never seen nothing. I took the stuff, put it in my boat, went back to the landing.
At 4:23 p.m., a man in a kayak called 911 after finding a body in the river. At 5:54 p.m., crime scene investigators recovered a Sig Sauer handgun from the water. The serial number matched the gun case found in Mica's car. Inside the Honda Accord, investigators found the receipt from the pawn shop and the receipt from the convenience store, both dated April 27th, 2024. A box of ammunition in the center console. John Paul Miller was not in North Carolina on the day Mica died. Investigators confirmed his whereabouts through eyewitnesses and license plate readers. He had traveled to Charleston on April 26th for a sporting event and returned to Myrtle Beach on the 27th. He was with other people during his travel. He had been served with the divorce papers 2 days before. On May 7th, 2024, 10 days after Mica's body was found in the Lumber River, the Robeson County Sheriff's Office ruled her death a suicide. The following day, JP gave an interview to a local television station. He talked about Mica's struggles with mental health. He described episodes she had experienced. He presented a narrative of a woman whose death, while tragic, was consistent with a history of mental illness. It was a careful performance, and it reached people who had not yet heard anything different. On April 28th, the Sunday after Mica's death, JP had stood before his congregation at the end of service and told them his wife had died. He said it was self-induced. He reminded them of her mental illness.
I'm going to have you stand up and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
Mica's family heard that. Mica's sister, Sierra Francis, had already filed a court affidavit. In it, she wrote that she believed John Paul had abused Mica and driven her to live in fear. She wrote this: "My sister also expressed to me that she was fearful that she would not make it to the divorce and that her life would be taken from her." She wrote what Mica had told her on many occasions: "If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me, it was JP." On May 5th, 2024, a memorial was held for Mica on the sand in North Myrtle Beach. The people who had loved her, her family, her friends, those who had known who she was, stood by the water where she had lived and mourned her. JP was not there. His church held a separate memorial the same day, approximately 30 miles away at the southern tip of Myrtle Beach. 2 services, 2 versions of what had happened, 30 miles between them. In the months after Mica's death, the silence that John Paul Miller may have expected did not come. What came instead was people outside his church with signs, with a phrase that became a rallying cry in Myrtle Beach, and through the particular reach of the internet in 2024, well beyond it: justice for Mica. The protesters showed up week after week. The church, which had been a place of Sunday abundance and outreach missions and worship teams and youth programs, became a place that people stood outside of to say that a woman's death should not be forgotten, that a ruling of suicide was not the same as a full accounting, that there were questions the official record had not answered. JP was arrested in November 2024, not in connection with Mica's death, but for assault and battery against a protester who had approached him outside the church. According to the warrant, she said, "Here, kitty, kitty." He got in her face. He tapped the brim of her hat, twice. The arrest did not resolve the larger question. It added, instead, to the picture of a man who had become, in the eyes of a growing public, someone to watch. In the fall of 2024, Solid Rock at Market Common closed. On November 1st, the FBI searched JP's home. In February and March of 2025, 2 women filed civil lawsuits against JP and his father, Reginald Wayne Miller, also a pastor, alleging a pattern of sexual abuse at their churches stretching back decades. One lawsuit alleged that JP raped a 15-year-old girl. Another described the churches as a hunting area for underage females. JP denied the allegations. In August 2025, after filing nearly 20 civil suits in magistrate court against protesters who had spoken publicly about Mica's death, a jury ordered him to pay one of those defendants $3,400. The church that had been built, the image that had been maintained, the narrative of a grieving husband navigating a difficult wife, none of it was holding. On December 17, 2025, more than 19 months after Mica's body was found in the Lumber River, a federal grand jury in Columbia, South Carolina, returned an indictment against John Paul Miller. 2 counts. The first, cyberstalking. The indictment alleged that beginning in November 2022, before Mica had even formalized the separation, before she had said out loud to a court that the marriage was over, John Paul Miller had sent unwanted and harassing communications to his estranged wife, that he had done so continuously, that the harassment had included posting a nude photograph to her Facebook account using an old phone he had taken from her, that he had hired a private investigator to surveil her, that the pattern had not stopped, had not paused, had not relented, that it continued until the day she died. The second count, making false statements to federal investigators The maximum penalty for the cyber-stalking charge, 5 years. For the false statements charge, 2 years. Not murder. The indictment did not charge John Paul Miller with murder. The official ruling remains what it has always been, that Mica Miller died by suicide in Lumber River State Park on April 27, 2024. The federal government's case is not that he killed her. It is that for 16 months, he systematically harassed and surveilled and humiliated and frightened her, and that when investigators asked him about it, he lied. In January of 2026, JP stood before a federal judge and pleaded not guilty. In April of 2026, his trial was delayed. It is now scheduled for June 2026. The case is open. The verdict is pending. There is a specific weight to what the federal indictment charges and what it does not. It does not charge him with her death. The law, as it currently stands in South Carolina and North Carolina, cannot reach what the family believes happened to Mica Miller through the sustained campaign of harassment and coercive control that preceded her death. There is no statute, yet, that makes a person legally accountable for driving another person to the edge through systematic terror and then watching them step off it. What no one who knew Mica, who loved Mica, who stood outside his church holding her name on a sign, can reconcile is the sequence. He was served with the divorce papers on April 25th. 2 days later, she was dead. She had bought a gun the morning she died, had driven more than an hour from Myrtle Beach to a state park in Robeson County, had called 911 and asked if her phone could be tracked so her family could find her body. These are documented facts. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office investigated them and reached its conclusion. Her sister, Sierra Francis, does not accept that conclusion. Mica's family does not accept it. The people who stood outside the church holding her name do not accept it. What they accept is what Mica told them on many occasions in the months before she died. If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me. It was JP. Whether the legal system will ever be able to reach the full meaning of those words is a question that June 2026 will begin to answer. But it will not fully answer it. It cannot. Mica Miller was 30 years old when she died. She had been a graphic designer. She had led the women's ministry of a church she had given herself to. She had stepped out of a marriage to a man who, according to the documents and the testimony and the federal indictment now pending against him, had spent 16 months making clear what the cost of leaving would be. She had told her sister. She had told her family. She had told police in a series of reports that produced no charges. She had filed for a protection order. She had filed for divorce. She had, by every measure available to a woman in her position, done what a woman in her position is supposed to do. There is a church in Myrtle Beach that is now closed. There is a federal trial scheduled for June 2026, not for murder, but for cyber-stalking and lying to investigators. There is a family that stood by a river in North Carolina and was told that the death of their daughter and sister was self-induced. There are questions that the official record does not answer, that the pending verdict will not fully answer, about what it means when a man systematically destroys a woman's life, piece by piece, for months, and the law can only see the pieces it has names for, about what coercive control looks like from the inside, and how long a person can sustain it before the weight becomes something else. And there are the words Mica left behind, spoken to her sister, repeated on many occasions, said the way a person says something they need someone else to hold on to, in case they are no longer there to say it themselves. If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me. She said it more than once. She said it the way careful people say things they know matter. The way a woman who has been told, in 100 quiet and not so quiet ways, what happens to women who try to leave, says the one thing she needs the people who love her to remember. What no one could know, what no law and no court filing and no restraining order summons could fully protect her from, was how completely the danger she named had already settled in around her. It is a case with a federal indictment and a pending trial, and a ruling of suicide that her family has never accepted. And still, in the way that matters most, the silence around what happened to Mica Miller on April 27, 2024, at Lumber River State Park is still loud. And sometimes, in cases like this, that weight is all that remains.